This is one of those cases where the question isn't what happened, but how it was allowed to happen. The warning signs were there, the fear was told to police, and yet police didn't intervene adequately, and 3 innocent people lost their lives. This is Uncovered. Mary Gingles, a former Army captain, a mother of a 4-year-old little girl, did everything she was supposed to do. She constantly went to police in Tamarac, Florida, and told them she feared that her estranged husband, Nathan Gingles, also a former Army captain, was going to kill her. And that's exactly what happened. Except Nathan Gingles isn't charged with just killing Mary. He's also charged in 2 other deaths that day. One of them was Mary Gingles' father, David Ponzer. He had come to her house in Tamarac, Florida, because he also feared for his daughter. She had said, "Dad, I need you to come and protect me because I am scared that Nathan is going to come to the house." Well, that morning, David Ponzer is sitting in Mary's backyard, and according to police, Nathan Gingles shoots him in the back of the head while he's having his morning cup of coffee. According to police, Nathan then confronts Mary. There's a lot of screaming and yelling. This is all in front of their 4-year-old little daughter. And Mary proceeds to run out of the house and into the neighborhood. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's still a little dark out. And she's running through the neighborhood, and people reported hearing screaming. Mary then runs to a neighbor's house, and she's banging on the door. And someone in the house comes and opens up the door because they can hear that there's panic. She runs up the stairs into the room of her neighbor, Andrew Ferrin, who is sleeping in bed, wrapped in blankets. And Nathan Gingles, according to police, comes up the stairs, corners Mary, shoots Andrew Ferrin, who's just sleeping, and then kills Mary Gingles. All of this in front of their 4-year-old daughter. Prosecutors say he then abducted his daughter in his car and drove around the neighborhood, and eventually police were able to find them at a local Walmart. But that was after an Amber Alert went out to the entire community. His daughter was unharmed. Nathan Gingles has pled not guilty to all the charges that he is facing. I want to bring in Gretel Aguila and Joan Chrysos. They're with the Miami Herald, and they've been covering this case extensively. Guys, first, can you tell me the lengths that Mary Gingles went to try to get police to listen to her?
Mary did everything right by all accounts, everyone we've spoken to. You know, the only thing she could have done is moved away, moved somewhere else, and then there'd be the child custody issue to deal with in court. But that's the most she could have really done to prevent this from happening. She called.
Remember, Mary was a captain in the Army.
Yes.
So she had very precise, detailed skills, and basically documented from between February 2024 and January 2025, and she was killed in February 2025, she contacted BSO, for the Broward Sheriff's Office, at least 14 times in that 1-year period. And everything was very detailed, what she, and you can see that both in the police narratives reports and also in the court filings. She got 2 restraining orders against Nathan during this time period, a year prior to her death, and very detailed court filings on what he was doing.
She laid everything out. When police would come and they would take her statement, she would tell them, like, my husband's stalking me. He's doing this, he's doing that. He put these supplies in my garage. He broke in. He used this ladder. He keeps putting a GPS tracker on me, etc. She even went to the degree of doing their own job and investigating. So when she found this GPS tracker
on her car,
she found out that Nathan used a shared credit card to buy it. So she was able to link the tracker to a purchase, and the police did not investigate that. And it's very clear that they didn't. They even said so in their report that the detective that was assigned to it didn't do anything else with it until way later.
I had called in like a month and a half ago, a report about finding a tracker on my car because I found a GPS tracker on a car that I bought, like post-divorce, solely my property.
One of the biggest mishaps. She got a restraining order, and in that restraining order, this was her second one she got, the judge said he had to surrender his guns, his weapons. Now, they knew that he had weapons because in the previous restraining order, he had surrendered his weapons, and they took a detailed inventory of all his weapons, all his ammunitions, all his accessories, and it was at least a 4 or 5 page detailed inventory that was filed in public records. So when the deputy goes to his home right after the new year, around January 4th or January 5th, with this order to surrender his weapons, knocks on the door, and basically says, I need to get you to surrender your weapons. And the deputy walks away. Doesn't come back and tell anyone in the office. Mind you, they had just taken his weapons about 4 months earlier and inventoried everything. The same group of people, the same law enforcement officers, and they used those weapons to kill her a month later.
So from people close to Mary, friends, neighbors, etc., um, everyone kind of said that she knew this was going to happen, that that she would have this conversation with her friends. She would tell them, like, one day you're going to be on a documentary where we're going to just they're going to be asking you, an interviewer or journalist is going to be asking you questions about me and this relationship and how I tried to get away from him and how he keeps threatening me and he ends up killing me. And one of the friends, really close friends, Mary, said that around the time that this happened, Mary was staying up at night because she feared her husband was going to break in, and she always thought he would do it at night. So she would stay up the whole night and like walk around her house with a gun because she feared he would break in at night. That'd be the opportunity or the time he would see opportune to break into the home and ambush her and her father and everyone. Um, so this was something that she was fearing for a long time. Since, she filed for divorce and separated from him and tried to get away from him and build her own life. She feared that exactly what happened was what was going to happen. And she told it to friends and she said it in court records. You would see it in her own words, in her own handwriting. My husband's going to kill me. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. He's going to kill me. He's taken steps to prepare to kill me. So she kind of accepted this as her reality while she was alive, which is very haunting to think about. And she was very frustrated by the fact that law enforcement wasn't really taking her concern seriously.
The Broward sheriff had some choice words for his officers after all this.
This is just a matter of what I've seen of piss poor performance. We had every opportunity to save that woman's life.
The Broward sheriff acknowledged that not only did his department fail Mary in the months leading up to this, but also on the day of the incident by not rushing into the neighborhood after reports of gunfire.
The sergeant that was responsible for that region that day told his officers to meet at a point right outside the neighborhood. And his officers listened. So in the minutes that that the shooting happened at Mary's house and Mary's running across the street, if officers would have responded, it was around that time period, they very well could have seen Nathan and Mary fighting outside, that scuffle that ensued outside where she was trying to wrestle herself away from him. And all of this could have been prevented. Andrew Ferrin would be alive and Mary Gingles might be alive. And that this incident would have really just sadly been the death of David Ponzer.
Why this is so important is that this is the same law enforcement agency, the Broward Sheriff's Office, that responded and was roundly criticized for not going into the school building when the shooting at Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High, that they stood outside. They fired the sheriff over it. They fired a lot of people over that. And this was supposed to be a brand new sheriff's office. And they had all new training about active shooter drills, and you have to rush to the scene and all that. This is the same law enforcement agency. One of the deputies that ultimately came to the scene, they didn't rush into the scene, and that was one of the reasons why several of them got fired. They kind of hung out outside the area where this happened. It was a gated community. They hung out outside the gates, even though they knew there was they knew something would happen. There was a shooter on the scene. But one of the deputies passed Nathan and the little girl who was trailing him barefoot. Again, like 7 in the morning, sun barely out, and didn't even kind of like think to stop, ask questions or anything like that. This was after the shooting. He had thrown the gun away, but he's, dressed all in black. This little girl is trailing him barefoot. Just to be curious, to ask, what are you doing out at 7 in the morning, with this little girl that's barefoot, and let him escape, basically. And that's what led to the Amber Alert. And thankfully, she wasn't hurt, the little girl, but she could have been, because it was 4 or 5 hours later.
So we know at least 8 deputies were fired for the way they handled, or quite frankly, didn't handle Mary's case. 21 others were disciplined.
From the day that this happened, the sheriff felt compelled to address the public and slammed his deputies' response to this incident.
When we rectify this situation, I'm going to send the fear of God amongst this entire agency to make damn sure we don't do this again.
One of the more powerful stories we got a recording of the December 29th phone call that she made to BSO. And she called to report this husband had left a suspicious backpack in her home. And she said it contained duct tape, plastic restraints, and, quote, items that he would need to murder me.
Hi, my name is Mary Gingles. I called on Friday because my ex-husband entered a home that we have a court order saying that I have full use and possession of. And he was wearing like a backpack. I had like security cameras, and you can tell he's carrying something. And I was looking through the footage, and I noticed he left something in the house. So he left the house with less than he came in. I report every time I find something.
That was probably one of the last phone calls she made to them.
Nathan Gingles is expected to go to trial in the next few months, and if he's found guilty of 3 first-degree murder charges, he will face the death penalty. I want to give a shout out to you guys and the Miami Herald, because some of the pre-trial hearings, his defense team was trying to have closed, meaning reporters couldn't go in, and thereby the public wouldn't know what was being said. And we know that in pre-trial hearings, we learn a lot about a case during that time. So you guys and some other media outlets, you fought to have that kept open.
That's important to see what both the prosecutors are laying out in their motions and what the defense is laying out, because we have not heard from Nathan other than saying that he pleaded not guilty.
What are some of the questions you guys hope to get answers to during this trial? Anything about Nathan himself?
From accounts that we've been able to get from sources, there was a lot going on in his finances at this time, and he was spending voluminous amounts of money on like hunting equipment and like those night vision goggles and stuff like that. So there was a larger plan, a larger premeditation of this unfortunate killing for a while. And those are things we just haven't been able to directly see. We've kind of heard about from people. And when you look at the discovery exhibits, it'll mention like this bill, whatever. So you have an idea of certain things that exist. We just haven't really been able to see it. And really wanted to see, his cell phone records, any search.
He was making plans to basically be a survivalist and live off the land.
Yeah. So
You
any
can
search
see that
warrants
from the
related
purchases.
to Google searches and things like that, any notes he may have had. Like, we really wanted to see the extent of this planning. We have a glimpse of it, obviously, from Mary and what she reported to law enforcement. But it's a lot more voluminous than that. So that's something that, with the trial and the case moving forward, I know we personally are interested in digging more into.
His premeditative state.
Great job to you both reporting on this incredibly sad and disturbing story. Well, I'm glad that the Broward Sheriff's Office has taken responsibility for failing Mary Gingles and every other person hurt in this incident. I think it has to go beyond that. Serious questions need to be posed to this department about their training protocols and procedures. Have they changed anything since this incident when it comes to responding to repeated domestic violence calls? When I asked that question to the department, they said there's no reason to change the protocols and procedures because if the officers had followed them, this wouldn't have happened. But I pushed back and said, maybe what you have there, your current protocols and procedures are not working for all officers. It's just not resonating. And the spokesperson responded saying, if they had followed what they were supposed to do, this wouldn't have happened. I also asked the department, is the sheriff himself, Gregory Toney, now having more personal oversight over repeated domestic violence calls? We see in the press conference that the sheriff really took this personally, what happened to Mary Gingles. He felt like it had happened on his watch. And so my question to the department, is he now going to have more personal oversight over these cases? They didn't respond. I do hope that the sheriff, he seems like a pretty great leader, that is something he's doing. For more true crime stories with depth, accountability, and impact, follow Us Weekly's YouTube page and visit uncoveredwithkristinthorne.com.